We're going to be taking another look at the Fox Bret Baier interview that he did with Kamala Harris. It is the only one of its kind, and it's the only one that ever exists because the elections are right around the corner. This is the only interview that Kamala Harris has done to date that hasn't been rigged. So we're going to take a deep dive, pick it apart, and see if there's maybe something in here that you did not know before and get you prepared for the elections. I'm Joe, and this is just your average Joe's experience. We're going to be taking another look at the Fox Bret Baier interview that he did with Kamala Harris. It is the only one of its kind, and it's the only one that ever exists because the elections are right around the corner. This is the only interview that Kamala Harris has done to date that hasn't been rigged. So we're going to take a deep dive, pick it apart, and see if there's maybe something in here that you did not know before and get you prepared for the elections. I'm Joe, and this is just your average Joe's experience. Let's get into it.
Madam Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Brett.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get
Get it out that way.
Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration
Doesn't want to answer it.
that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
Just get an answer. Just give her time.
6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
Oh, I bet.
When you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes.
I'm just going to stop here for a moment because we're going to talk about some of those heinous crimes and people that he was referencing. And I just want to start off by saying my condolences to all the families that have been affected by these heinous crimes that have been mentioned. Now, not everybody that has come in has been bad. There's been, I know of people that have come in that have been amazing people and very caring people, and they just want a better life. But that's not everybody. And unfortunately, there are people that are coming through. There are people coming from terrorist cell organizations and countries that are literally the entire intent is death to America. So I wish everybody was coming in was good and was going to prop up our country, but unfortunately that's not how everybody is. That's not how it all is. And there are some crimes and people, and specifically that we'll get to, that have done very bad things. Starting off, we have Jose Ibarra. Just a brief overlay of what's regarding him. Take a look into this video.
Jose Ibarra is in jail charged with Lincoln Riley's murder. He is from Venezuela, and according to ICE, he entered the country illegally in 2022 and was later paroled. 11 Alive's Rebecca Lindstrom joining us now in studio.
So, Rebecca, a lot of folks want to know, did Ibarra even, did he fall through the cracks? Was he even supposed to be up in Athens in the first place when that crime occurred?
Well, from what I can tell, if everyone had followed procedures, the answer is no. There are at least 2 points in time that really could have made a difference.
So those 2 points in time that she is referencing is, first off, when he was in New York. He originally with his wife got bussed over into New York, and he had been supposedly arrested because he was driving a moped without his helmet, and then they found that he has no license or anything, so he shouldn't have been driving in the first place. They did not hold him long enough. They released him early and didn't do any due processing. Now, this was just a petty crime, but with the amount of people that are coming in over the border, there's no vetting process. The vetting process has been thrown out the window. And the way that they do their vetting process now is if you have a charge against you and you're arrested, held in jail, then you have ICE or somebody that comes down to basically do that vetting process directly. And he, in this instance, was released before that vetting process was done. So that's the first part. And it kind of talks about it over in this article here. Jose Ibarra should never have been in our country to begin with. Senator Braun on Jose Ibarra, arrested for murder of student in Georgia. Now that is future, but basically it says that he was arrested in New York under a sanctuary, or which was a sanctuary city, but there was the moped incident that he had been arrested for initially. And then we have the second instance of when he had gotten in trouble with the law. Right here. Ibarra's brother was living in Athens, so he goes over to Athens. It was only about a month after Ibarra's arrest in New York that he and his brother were accused of stealing from a Walmart in Athens. They were given a citation for misdemeanor, shoplifting, and let go. So he wasn't even supposed to be there to begin with, except that his brother brought him over there in order to do petty crime. Unfortunately, a lot of the crime that has been committed by immigrants that have come over, it has been related to Venezuela. Just brief overlay on Venezuela, they haven't always been a bad country. There was a time back, 10, 15 years ago in South America that they were flourishing, that they were a republic country. And they didn't have all the crime that is pertained to Venezuela now. But now they are a dictator, totalitarian system, a banana republic. And the person that is running it has total control and works with the cartel and drugs, and it just makes it worse and worse and worse. But the reason I bring this up is this is the exact same thing that we're getting to. The stuff that's happening in our own country is similar to a banana republic in another country, in a third world country. And we are the epitome of democracy. And we are getting our rights and our freedoms stripped away in absurd fashion. They do it blatantly, out front, in front of your eyes. And they feel that you don't care. They know you can see it now. Before, back then, when they would try to do it 10, 15 years ago here, they would have got caught. They would have been ostracized for what they are doing. But because something is done so often in small amounts, it becomes normal. And the sheer fact of that normalcy is what is a detriment to our society. So, just wrapping up everything with the immigration part, there's been, what it was like $650 million that's been given to this these sanctuary cities for the immigration crisis. That's been directly taken out of things to fund Social Security and FEMA resources that we give as a crisis that we have created here in our own country. And we don't have the means for that money to be used in a crisis that's actually needed for things that are unforeseen, like hurricanes, for instance. And back to the video.
So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before
One that was
worked
already
on
getting passed?
infrastructure before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the CHIPS and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act. The first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the
And-
U.S. Citizenship Act of 2000.
I believe the
Exactly.
Democrats were
And-
against
and-
that.
But
Pathway to
may I
citizenship for
please
the-
finish?
Yes,
May
ma'am.
I finish? May I finish the comment,
But you-
please?
but
But
this-
you have to let me finish,
You had the
please.
White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and
in
they
the
didn't
middle
bring
of
up that bill.
responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from
Really?
day one then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe
Yeah, it
the
would
Border
have,
Patrol
but you
agents
guys were against
supported
it.
the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background,
Well, at least she
every
acknowledges that
geographic
now.
location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done
Yes, ma'am.
as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs,
Six-
guns, and human beings. And
six
Donald Trump,
Democrats-
but let me just finish.
Six
And
Democrats
Donald
voted
Trump
against that bill.
learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue, but actually is focused on fixing
Six
it.
Democrats.
Political games, huh, Kamala? Okay. All right. Here is a little taste of, I guess, her own medicine. I mean, here she is playing political games with a storm that Florida had to deal with, that was preparing for, and she wanted to input herself into the situation just because she had blundered Hurricane Helene so bad.
DeSantis is ignoring your calls on hurricanes, resources, and help. How does that hurt the situation here?
You know, moments of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone who calls themselves a leader says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games at this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations. It's just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
Those are some real empty words. The fact that she... This is what they do. They like to discredit somebody else by trying to take the higher moral ground and saying that they're the ones that are politicized. They're the ones that are, trying to make the judicial system as a weapon. This is what they do. They try to throw off the blame. They try to throw off the view away onto somebody else so that people don't look at them. Here she is attacking Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, for focusing on Floridians due to Hurricane Milton that's coming through. Because she had such a blunder with Hurricane Helene that she felt that she had the need, or she needed to input herself into this to make it look like she was actually doing something, that she cared. Well, let's see what Ron DeSantis has to say about that.
And we've been laser focused on leveraging all resources available, including from the federal government. And I've been in touch with both FEMA and the president, as well as marshaling all our state agencies and working to support our local communities. And so for Kamala Harris to try to say that my sole focus on the people of Florida is somehow selfish is delusional. She has no role in this. In fact, she's been vice president for 3.5 years. I've dealt with a number of storms under this administration. She has never contributed anything to any of these efforts. And so what I think is selfish is her trying to blunder into this. No, and here's the thing. She has no role. No, she has no role in this process. I'm in contact with the President of the United States. I'm in contact with FEMA director. I'm obviously managing all our state agencies. We're supporting all our local government. And I will say this. I've had storms under both President Trump and President Biden, and I've worked well with both of them. She's the first one who's trying to politicize the storm, and she's doing that just because of her campaign. She's trying to get some type of an edge. She knows she's doing poorly, and so she's playing these political games. I don't have time for political games. I've got peoples whose lives are on the line. I've got peoples whose homes and their possessions are on the line, and we are focused 100% on that mission. I'm not worried about playing her political games, and so she is being selfish by trying to blunder into this when we're working just fine.
There's Ron DeSantis' take, and I can't help but agree. I feel the reason why she is inputting herself into this is because she failed so bad with Hurricane Helene, that she had so much bad criticism for it that it had to be on her radar to try to make it look like she was doing better this time. Oh, what do you need, Ron? I've never talked to you before, but here, what do you need now that I can try to politicize and try to publicly state that I'm trying to help you, and it's not my fault if you don't want my help now because I'm trying. That's literally what this is. Now, it's not the first time the Biden-Harris campaign has used this tactic of deferring away from problems that they consistently have done throughout the campaign and generalizing them just to kind of offer any form of a response. Even in rigged debates, she can't answer simple questions without a proper, understandable response that gives any contextual proof of trying to fix a specific problem. Instead of adequately proposing a new way forward, as their campaign slogan goes, she's sticking to the same old tactics and falsely accusing her opponent, as they've done time and time again, while offering absolutely no credible substance in return. Here is a clip stating that she talks about Trump has no policy plan, he doesn't know what he's doing, and how awful it really is. Well, let's take a look at that conversation right in the rigged ABC debate.
You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you, because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite.
Those Bluetooth earphones are doing pretty good.
And many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
All right, let's brief overview of some of the specifics of her plan. Vice President Kamala Harris laid out her economic agenda Friday. I don't know what Friday that was, but promising tax breaks for middle-class families and to crack down on companies raising rent and get grocery prices. On companies raising rent and grocery prices. Okay, we'll go back to that later. Many of Harris's proposals expanded on policies proposed by Joe Biden. Exactly, copy and paste. I mean, we've been over this. Harris's agenda contrasts with Republican opponent Donald Trump, although the two campaigns have some key policies in common, which he also copied, including expanding the child tax credit and ending taxes on tips. Trump comes out with it. Day later, she says the same thing. Oh, that sounds good. Let's do that. Maybe that's what they want. Let's see if we can find out how she's going to fund. Let's see how she's going to fund this. Harris's campaign told NBC on Monday she would fund some of this plan through an avenue similar to a proposal by her predecessor. Copy and paste. Harris proposed raising the corporate tax to 28%, echoing a strategy suggested by Biden. Shocker. That's 7 percentage points more than the current rate, which was imposed under Trump's administration. The Congressional Budget Office, a nonpartisan federal agency that does research for the legislature, said in 2018 that raising the corporate tax rate just 1% would increase revenues by $96 billion over 10 years. All right, so say 7, that's like $700 billion. That must be nice if everybody stays in the country instead of going overseas and taking their corporations over to China and other places for cheap labor. I guess if you're able to retain everybody under some insane non-incentive plan, sure. I mean, that's the only main way that we are able to generate income in society is through the money machines of the corporate sectors that get money to come in to the country. I mean, without corporations, we don't get money. I mean, that's just, that's where it boils down to. All right, well, what is the corporate tax raising really going to do? It is critical for policymakers to understand that raising the corporate income tax would not only reduce economic output and wage growth, but also increase consumer prices. So, you're wanting to raise tax rates so that you get more money from corporations, hoping that they don't leave because your insane plans of trying to weasel as much money out of them as possible, as they're the main revenue generators for the country, our economy. And at the same time, when you do that, it's going to lower the amount that the average person gets paid from those wages that the companies stay here, because they have to find ways to make ends meet and to stay afloat with their company, to stay here in the first place. And also increases consumer prices, groceries, cost of living, other things that we as, I guess, not the rich have to worry about. I guess you kind of forgot about this part in your scheming. I mean, coming from people that have made money, that are rich, through ways that we'll get into later. Politicians, most of them, especially when you go to a certain side, they have money. So they don't even think about this stuff when they're proposing these things. They're just, would raising the corporate income tax rate weaken the economy? Raising the corporate income tax rate would weaken the economy. Erica York, economist, and Alex Merecianu, I'll say it right properly that time, federal policy analysts, both of the Tax Policy Institute, estimated that raising the corporate tax rate to 28% from 21% would reduce GDP by a cumulative $720 billion over the next 10 years. So, everything that they're trying to get from the prospective amount of raising the corporate tax over the next 10 years would be offset by the reduction in GDP over the next 10 years, and it just levels out. So basically we're pushing all of our corporations away, increasing inflation, cost of everything, and in turn we're going to have to pay for it later because it just it just completely offsets itself. That makes no sense. Raising the corporate tax or income tax, raising the rate corporate income tax rate, that sounds so weird, with lower wages and increased costs for everyday people. You forgot about the everyday people when you're making those policies, huh? It's just a crude world we live in. Well, let's see what else that they have to say.
Voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Mungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday, campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened,
condolences to those
this is well
families.
before
It's
any
awful.
negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Brett,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are...
Most of this stuff was in the very beginning of their campaign. I don't know if anybody remembers the Guatemalan buses that were coming in after when they first took presidency, saying, come on over. Everybody's welcome. Just cross over. And there was literally video footage of people falling off the buses. They were trying to get on these buses that were going through Guatemala in order to come over to the border. It was mass chaos. I don't think that she's wanting to include that and talk about that when she's going over these policies that should have been implemented from the get-go, or, just continue with what was happening, what was working with Trump's immigration policies, that we didn't have to worry about anything. Now we have a crisis on our hands that we now have to deal with, and there has to be extreme measure. Unfortunately, you can even take it as a math equation. If you have a negative, in order to make a positive, if you have negative 100, in order to make 0 to be a baseline, you have to do the reciprocal of 100. That's the same way that it works in the real world. That this is a negative that is happening, a crisis is a negative. In order to get to baseline, you have to do an extreme reciprocal. And I hate that it has to be that way. I truly do. Because if we think about it, if we continued on Trump's policies, if we continued with the wall or everything that was going on, we were starting to put less and less and less attention towards it. So then we could start focusing on other things that mattered. We wouldn't have had to focus on immigration. Why is it still a problem? It was a problem in 2016, and then we did something about it. It didn't fix it. It made it better. When you ban something, it still comes through, but on a much lower rate. And that's essentially what we were doing, what had happened, and then they just opened up the floodgates and said, everybody come on over. This is what they've created.
We're working around the clock, trying to hold it all together,
Madam Vice President,
to ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election.
Really?
Because there was a solution, Brett.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn, Ungeray's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the
Condolences to that
early
mother.
phase.
That is.
So do you owe them an apology, is what
I
I'm
will
saying.
tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I'm so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about...
But, oh, yeah, I'm sorry that you lost your child and you're a grieving mother, and I am literally the direct reason why you have lost your child. But that just completely contradicts everything that you had just said. What about really speaking to that mother and apologizing? It's not that difficult. Again, her talking about that, why is everything got to be politicized? Right back to this. In the interview, directly contradicting herself. Politicizing an apology. Let's get back into it.
About what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you want to answer
in all fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
During that time,
It seems
you
that
said
way.
repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration
Oh.
before.
So, well, at least she was honest on that, because that was the whole reason why immigration was something that he had to even run on, because it was a problem. Starting back in Obama creating the cages, and there was mass deportation under Obama as well. People tend to forget that, but there was mass deportation and families were separated. A lot of families were separated under Obama. That without proper, I don't want to say control, but enforcement over the border, it leads into all sorts of chaos and nonsensory. Here is what a heartfelt response really looks like.
Today's Kamala's birthday.
It's Kamala's birthday?
She's
60 years old?
Do you want to say it?
Yes, I would say happy birthday, Kamala. She's turning 60.
Did you get her some fries?
I think I'll get her some flowers.
Why not the big birthday?
Maybe I'll get her some fries. You're right, that might be. I'll give her some McDonald's. I'll get her a McDonald's hamburger.
Thank you.
No, it is her birthday. It is true, right?
I saw
Happy birthday, Kamala. Happy birthday.
Why
See you
not
later.
the-
Bye.
What happened to the big, mean orange man that everybody talks about? There's the news channels trying to incite and try to get something out of Trump. But what he offers is sincerity and love and compassion, even for somebody that does not show him that. Now this, mind you, this is coming from somebody that is the victim of absurd judicial weaponized attacks, that is literally fighting for his life, has been shot at. Yet he has the time and the love in his heart to offer a response like this, which we all need to have the love in our heart to understand that just because somebody has a difference in opinions and beliefs does not mean that we have to destroy the person, that we have to get rid of the threat. It doesn't mean that. We can hate somebody's actions, yet love them for a person. There are certain actions that need to be condemned, but everybody is worth saving. Everybody is worth loving regardless of how far that they have fallen. And this part of the other administration has fallen far, to the point where they don't even want to talk about God in their rallies. We have to know who we're fighting for in this upcoming election. And we have to fight for our founding principles, which our nation was founded under God. And we need to get back to our roots and know that we need to love each other, love our neighbors, just as we love ourselves. And that's the only way that we're going to be united in these great United States of America. God bless you, and God bless America.
In the street.